Hi, I'm Dan Hegstead, and this is a video version of a presentation I do for our local county jail, which is Crow Wing County, Minnesota. This is a presentation I try to do every month, but I can't always make it, and I only talk to the guys, and the women could hear this too, so I asked them if they wanted a video version. They said yes, and I'm a videographer, so I can do this. This presentation is called Living a Good Life, not Living the Good Life, because it's about being a good person. And this, the Impact program is for people who are within 90 days of being released from incarceration. And I've got a lot of advice. I got a lot of stuff I've learned over the last 40 years, and I want to share it with you. And I don't know any other way to do it than to just tell you. You know, they would tell you, no, this should be, videos should be 3 minutes and no longer. And well, this one's going to be 2 videos of 45 minutes each, and I'm just going to sit here and talk to you. Fortunately, I can add graphics to make it a little more interesting. I just hope you'll pay some attention. You're going to get some good stuff out of this. I guarantee it. This is good information. And it's obviously going to be kind of a superficial, shallow, drink with a fire hose ideas. And if any of this sounds interesting, you can dig deeper. There's a lot more here. I worked for many years as a professional speaker and trainer, as a motivational speaker. And businesses would hire me to come in and do presentations about stress management, positive attitude, good ways of thinking and operating and so forth. And I enjoyed that a lot. The business just died with COVID. So that's not happening, but, I'm still available. Now, I think it's important that you know that I'm not a therapist, a counselor, a pastor, or a professional anything. I don't even have a college degree. I went to college for a while in journalism and broadcasting, but that's it. And I worked, almost my entire working career was commission sales. So what are my credentials for this? Well, I started out stupid, and I think I've learned a lot. And I don't know why. I guess I was smart enough to learn from my mistakes, and better yet, I was smart enough to learn from other people's mistakes, taking advice and trying to be a better person. Now, what does it all come to? I'm all about simplicity. I'm going to say that a lot in here. Simple, simple, simple. The simple answer is always the right one. And what does it come down to? We all want to be happy. That's it. We just want to be happy. So what does it take to get there? Well, we make things more complicated, and we have to work through things, and circumstances happen and so forth. So this is just a lot of good information on how to lead a better life. Now, I've written a book called Next Steps, Tools for Transforming from Coping to Thriving, and that's one of the books I recommend to you. For those of you in Crow Wing County, Minnesota facility that's in your library, I've donated some copies. There's one, When I Say No, I Feel Guilty, Manuel J. Smith. We'll talk more about that later. And M. Scott Peck wrote a book called The Road Less Traveled. And I'm not a good reader. I haven't read a lot, but I have read those 2 books and wrote my own. Now, in my book, which is available on Amazon, by the way, as a paperback and a Kindle and an audio book read by me, Chapter 6, I believe it is in my book, is My Theology, which I've changed since it came out just a couple years ago. And I don't do this because I want you to believe that. You can do what you want. You got a big brain, make up your own mind as to what makes sense to you. But I want people to know that this is one view of what it means to be a Christian. A Christian can mean a lot of different things. It's not one size fits all. And so just be aware of that. All this is my opinion. Take it or leave it, but I got to tell you, I've learned a lot in the last 40 years, and I'm going to share that with you. I believe that spirituality is remarkably simple, and people turn it into religion, which is remarkably and unnecessarily complicated. If you are going to believe in a God, what does that God look like? And many of us taught that it's the angry old man sitting on the gold throne in the clouds. He's really pissed, and you had an impure thought, so you're going to spend eternity in hell. And it's not, I just don't think that's real. From my understanding, there is a God. God loves you no matter what. There's nothing you can do or could have done that would condemn you forever. Now, that doesn't say that there aren't consequences here and hereafter. I think karma is a real thing, and, there's going to be a reckoning, but it's not forever. And it's more of an understanding than a punishment, as I understand it. So that's my thought. Take it or leave it. I believe that God is there for you. God does not make things happen. We have free will. We can choose to do this or that. And God will help you if you ask. God will help you if you ask. God celebrates your successes and weeps with you always. But God will always be there. God will help you if asked. Again, my opinion. Forgiveness is always. So that's where I start out from. Now, we start with two basic premises. When I started writing the book, I ran across a quote that changed me. Now, I'd written this, but over the course of like 3 paragraphs made the point. And Tracy Malone said it in 7 words, which is like, yeah, okay, 7 words. Bam, it can't get any simpler. Once you become fearless, life becomes limitless. Once you become fearless, life becomes limitless. And it's just a basic truth of life. Fearless. Now, I don't mean you should just close your eyes and walk out in the street. Of course not. But what do we fear? What do you fear? What do all of us fear? When you think about it and you dig down and get down to the simplest part, what we fear is we're going to feel bad. You're going to feel bad. And think about that. That's true. We're going to feel bad. Somebody's not going to like us. Our spouse is going to leave us. Our friends will not like us. God hates you. I'm going to make a mistake and I'm going to feel bad. So I say, if you can live with the likelihood or possibility that you're going to feel bad, but you'll still be okay, you can do almost anything. You can accomplish almost anything. You can have good, successful relationships and a wonderful life when fear is not holding you back. And that's a theme that's going to come up over and over again in the next 90 minutes or however long this takes. Once you become fearless, life becomes limitless. Think about what you're afraid of. It's almost always, I'm going to feel bad in the end. And if you can live with that, you can do anything. The next part is understanding that you, and I mean this literally true, you have a superpower. And just because everybody has the superpower doesn't mean it isn't special, because it's special to you. You have the power to decide things and change your mind. If you didn't like this, you can do that. And we do it all day long, so we don't think it's special, but it really, really is. Now, I had a dog, Scout. Unfortunately, she recently passed away, and I miss her every day. But she was really smart. I mean, she, just as animals go, probably one of the smartest there is. But she couldn't change her mind about what she wanted for dinner. She couldn't say, I want to live with a different family. She couldn't say, hey, I'd rather live on a farm and herd sheep rather than sit around with you. It didn't matter what she wanted. She didn't have that power. You have that power to decide, I want this or I want that. You, I believe, should exercise that power, but you have to know what you want. You have to know who you are. So those are the places where I start from. Being fearless and the power to choose. If you have a job, you have a boss. Somebody who decides when you come to work, what shifts are, how things work, and how you work. You are the boss of your life. Don't leave it to somebody else. Be clear. I'm the boss of my life, and I'll decide what I do. I love Tracy Malone's being fearless. And for my life, I try to be fearlessly honest. And I don't mean just, hey, you gave me the wrong change, but honest. Honest about who I am, what I want, why I do what I do. What's this relationship like? Is this working? Am I saying what I really think and feel? I need to be honest. Am I listening correctly and understanding? Am I doing the right work? All those things. Being honest about it is important. Now, people talk about these big questions of life. Why are we here? And what's life all about? And what's my purpose? You know, the comics, the cartoons, are all about some guy climbing a mountain and finding a guru at the top of the mountain. You know, what's my purpose? And I think I figured it out, or I heard it and went, yeah, that makes sense. Take it or leave it, but I think we are all born as wonderful, loving, lovable beings, and we lose that because of the place where we're at here, this planet. And I believe our job, our number one job in life here, is to remember who you are and be that person. And that takes a lot of courage. It requires being fearless to be who you really are. And the next thought is that, you know, a lot of us think, well, I don't want to be, you know, who I am is not a good person. Self-esteem issues. And I get that. But I tell you, I don't think that's true. I think you and every one of us is born a good, wonderful, lovable person, and that gets lost under layers of hoo-ha, let's call it that. And your number one job is to figure out who you really are and be that person, because that person is a wonderful person, and the world needs more people really being who they were born to be. Think of that. Your next job is to be loving and honest and not hurt people. And the last thing is to have fun. It's just those three things. It's as simple as dirt. And as I say so often, as my teachers have told me, it's simple, but not easy. Simple, but not easy. Become you. Be loving, have fun. Do that, everything's going to be okay. If everybody do that, the whole world would be great. So one of the problems we have is our brain here. It's just a remarkable thing, and it works wonderfully, but if left to its own devices, it doesn't always serve us, okay? So, and I'm not a brain scientist or doctor, as I said, but for our purposes, I think it's really important that we understand how this thing works. Now, when we were, hunter-gatherers out on the plains of Africa or wherever we were, there were animals that we were hunting, and they were hunting us. And they wanted to kill us and eat us. And when that happened, if you were attacked by whatever it was, you didn't have time to think, what's the best way to run here? What do I need to fight this thing or blah, blah, blah. You don't have time to think about that at all. You just need to act and move as quickly as possible. And that is what our brainstem does for us. It doesn't think. This is the part of your brain that sits at the very top of your spinal cord, at the base of your brain, and it's kind of the utility room of your body. This is the thing, you don't have to think, you don't have to worry about dying because you forgot to tell your heart to beat. It just does. You breathe. Your bodily functions work. And that's what happens back here in this thing we call the lizard brain. It's the base brain. And it takes care of us. And thank you, lizard brain, for taking care of us for all these eons of time, because we're safe. We act quickly. And that's fine. But what happens in our modern world is that we're not so much attacked by animals, but we're attacked by life, sometimes other people, literally so, emotionally, physically. And we are just acting out of fear, and it's keeping us safe. But it becomes habit, and it makes the rest of our brain not work so well. So somehow, and again, this is simple but not easy. It takes time to get out of this fight, flight, or freeze. And the beginning of that is just understanding how this thing works. If we are constantly on edge because we've been constantly attacked, we're not thinking. We're just acting. And this is where emotions happen, and we act on our emotions, which is fear and anger and all those things that aren't necessarily needed, probably aren't. So if we can relax, we can intentionally engage our higher brain, and this is where real thinking happens. This is where this power to decide happens, up here. Understanding all your choices and saying, I want this, I don't want that. Simple, but not easy. But at least understanding that this is what we want to happen. And it's a process that people do. They get out of this fight, flight, freeze, where we live all day, and get to the point where we can think clearly. ACEs, we'll talk about that. Adverse childhood experiences. That just triggers all this stuff, and we're not thinking clearly. And there are negative consequences for that. But there are things you can do, absolutely. So we'll talk more about that. But just be aware of that. That's where I'm coming from. If once you become fearless, life becomes limitless, the fear happens here. And we need to get beyond that and into a limitless and wonderful life. So this is where feelings happen. Everything gets processed here first. So on one hand, we say, trust your feelings. If you get bad vibes from somebody, be aware of that. It may not be real. You may just be, maybe subconsciously they remind you of somebody you don't trust, but, just be aware of that. But a lot of times our feelings are triggered by things outside ourselves. And the advertisers, preachers, politicians are masters at manipulating our fear and anger. They are masters at it. And what they're telling you, well, advertising, it's not bad, but the message of most advertising is you're not as happy as you could be. There's your fear. Oh, no. What you need is this new car. You need these new clothes. You need this, whatever it is. The preachers, some of them, not all, but some of them manipulate your fear. You better do this or God's going to hate you. You're going to hell. You're going to blah, blah, blah. And then the politicians. Oh, the politicians. Those people are coming here. They're going to do all these awful things. Or if you elect this guy, you're going to be, these bad things are going to happen to you. And they're just manipulating your fears. And I just say, be aware of that and don't let them do it. Just say, like it's easy. But realize when that's happening and say, well, I don't know that that's true. I'll decide. You move from here to here. It happens a lot. And the first step is just being aware of how this thing operates and how these entities outside of us can be just masters at manipulating that fear. And part of being a whole person, living honestly, is to say, I'll decide what I'm afraid of or not. I'm not letting you decide. Be the boss of your life. You know, if you're the boss, you could make mistakes, and then you'd feel bad. And we'll talk more about that in a little bit. So these feelings happen, and feelings aren't good or bad. They're just there. And people say just recognize them and, you know, see them as a cloud. And you're going to, oh yeah, there's a feeling. You don't have to act on it. You do not have to act on it. You may decide to. One person said, it's a little like having to pee. You just wait till it's appropriate in the right place. You know, you don't just pee on the floor. And I thought, well, yep, that's about what it's like. So you've got feelings, but you wait till later to decide how you're going to act on those feelings. And that's okay. So don't be controlled by your feelings. But they're not good or bad. They're just there. And, you know, somebody said, don't believe everything you think. You know, maybe there's a group of people you really, you know, dislike. Why? You know, why is that? You know, where does that come from? Well, it's a feeling. It's legit. You feel it. Yep. But maybe it's not valid. So don't believe everything you think. A very wise man, one of my mentors, said all anger comes from frustration. All anger comes from frustration. And I'm leery of, you know, all this or these absolutes, because things are very rarely absolute, but I think this is one of them. All anger comes from frustration. Well, if you're angry, what are you angry about? Frequently, you're angry because somebody is not acting the way you want them to, or the world is not playing out the way you want. And think of that. If you want to be happy, being angry is not being happy. And if you're angry because somebody else is acting a certain way, or the world is not the way you want it, your anger's not going to go away. You know, you can go out and yell at the wind if you want, but the wind isn't going to change. You know, there's that Simpson cartoon, Angry Man Yells at Cloud. The serenity prayer. God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, the wisdom to know the difference. I mean, there's a reason it's repeated all the time. It is a serious, fundamental part of life. Because if you're angry about things you can't change, well, that's just goofy. And you're not ever going to be happy. But it's hard to let go of that anger, and you want it to be different, and it's just not going to happen. Now, that doesn't mean you shouldn't fight for change and fight for what you believe in, but, you know, there's some things that just are never going to change. You cannot change other people. I know you want to, and they'd be so much better off if they just listened to you, but it's not always going to happen. It's really hard to let go of these things that we cannot change because there's so many of them. Yeah, but once you get to that point, life is just a lot better. I believe, as I said a moment ago, there are few absolutes in life. I think the love of God is one of those, all anger coming from frustration, and the fact that we can do something about that, those are, yeah, that's there. But so many of the issues of the day, people think that I'm on this side or I'm on this side, and somebody says, oh, if you don't believe this, then you must believe that. And think of, you know, guns and abortion and immigration, you know, big questions. Well, it's either hordes of people coming in or nobody comes in. It's everybody's packing or all guns are confiscated. It's, you know, and things are way more complicated than that. But what's going on? This base brain again. It doesn't have feelings. It doesn't understand. It can't, you know, get the bigger picture. It's either going to kill me or I don't care. That is it. And it's black or white. People are good or evil. You know, it's this or that. Well, that's not reality, people. And when you engage your bigger brain, and if you're going to lead a good life, you're going to get that there's gray areas. And perfect solution is an oxymoron. It doesn't exist. It's like jumbo shrimp or Army intelligence. You know, it's just perfect solution. There is none. All we can come up with is the best solution. Of course, the politicians are trying to, manipulate us, but the real answer is going to be the best answer, not the perfect answer, and it's going to be somewhere in the middle. And when you get to that point, that's called adulting. And that's when you're using your higher brain, is that you realize there's not a perfect solution, there's the best solution. As a motivational speaker, I must talk about the half glass of water analogy, because that's what attitude's all about. And I say that half jokingly because it's such an old cliche that nobody talks about it anymore, except me, because there's more to it than we've been led to believe. The thinking is that, show somebody a half glass of water and say, is it half full or half empty? If they say it's half full, then they're an optimist because they're seeing the fullness. If they say half empty, they're a pessimist because they're seeing the emptiness. And that's fine as far as it goes. But the big picture, what the glass of water thing is teaching us is, the eternal optimist is as delusional as the eternal pessimist. Right? Balance in the middle is where the answer is. It's presented as, is the glass this or that, right? Black or white. And the real answer is yes, it's both. It's half full and it's half empty. I've been an optimist. I was just born an optimist. And it's awful, because reality doesn't reflect that at all. The world can be a pretty awful place, and I don't have to give you any examples. But the eternal pessimist is equally delusional. The world is not, a post-apocalyptic hellscape. It's just not. There's a lot of wonderful things in the world, and I think on balance, it balances. The point is, you have the power to choose. It comes back to that. You have the power to choose. Now, I do not believe that God makes things happen. Things happen for a reason. We hear all that. We just don't know what it is. I do not believe that. Maybe I'm wrong. But I do believe when things happen, what we call bad things, there can be a lesson there if you choose to see it, and that's being an optimist. And it's not denying the negative, it's being realistic. And that's where I'm at. When I talk about fearless honesty, I'm talking about being a realist, not an optimist or a pessimist. I need to live in reality, and that's where true happiness is not denying anything, but acknowledging everything, and just getting okay with that, as tough as it can be. So an example I use when I'm talking to the guys in Echo Unit, and I'm hesitant to do this because I've never been incarcerated. I don't know what it's like. I can only imagine. And I've thrown this out a couple times, and nobody's argued with me yet. But I say, okay, nobody has chosen to be incarcerated and be here. Nobody has chosen that. It's generally, figured that it's not a good thing to be in jail. However, I'm going to suggest that if you've had a pretty chaotic life outside, if you've been into substances, alcohol, other drugs, and so forth, here you are with an opportunity to get your head a little straight, to clean out and take a look at things and maybe make some changes. Am I saying it's a good thing? I don't know. Maybe there's some positive aspects to it. There's the glass. It's half empty and half full. You can choose. And you can choose to take the lesson from this. You have an opportunity now to make some changes. This is a good opportunity to do that. So there's an example, and I hope it's a realistic and good one, on how you can choose a positive attitude. You know, circumstances, like feelings, aren't good or bad. There they are, and you can make what you want out of it, and you can take a lesson and learn from it or not. I got a couple other thoughts about managing emotions. I believe that it's a good thing to, as much as you can, stop taking offense at other people. And they do say and do mean and nasty things, sometimes inadvertently, but sometimes, directed at you for stupid reasons. And you'd be well within your rights to take offense at it. But you're not going to change them. Nothing's going to change. Taking offense is only you being angry because somebody's not acting the way you want them to. And so I'm going to say stop taking offense. Simple, but not easy. I mean, they trigger things. They do. A couple of thoughts here. First of all, we get angry because other people are being mean and stupid. Okay. The other part is that if they're insulting you, do you believe there is a grain of truth in that? If not, why are you angry? They're making stuff up, and you know it's not true. So think about that. Mostly we're mad because they're being, because they're being mean. But do you believe it? If not, then let it go. Yeah, simple but not easy. My son learned a good lesson in driver's training. The instructor talked about tailgaters. We have this idea that we have this bubble around our car. This is my space. I'm going to defend it at all costs, and this guy's in my space. Road rage. Well, it's you deciding that this is how big your bubble around your car is. I mean, you can change that, right? You have the power to change. You could say, well, he could hit me if I hit the brakes. Well, how often does that happen? Not very often. Mostly it's just we don't want him in our space. And the instructor said, don't let someone else drive your car. Don't let someone else drive your car. What you're doing is you're letting him in your head and you're letting yourself get angry. Choose not to. He's in your space. Well, just say, no, I decided my space starts at my bumper. Or move out of the way. Or whatever, but then there's going to be somebody else. It's just an ongoing thing. Don't let someone else drive your car. You decide. You're the boss of your life. You're the boss of your head. I'm not going to get angry at that guy. It's not worth it. I'm not letting him control. He doesn't care about me. He only cares about himself, and I'm not letting him in my head. The instructor said, if you have to do something quickly, you probably shouldn't be doing it. I think that's good advice, too. I think it's a good idea to just quit complaining about stuff. Yeah, bad things happen to us all the time, and we're uncomfortable and on and on and on. And change it if you can. That's fine, but it's just life. It's just the way it is. Quit complaining. Years ago, when we were starting to build these rovers that were going to explore Mars, team got together, building these rovers, and it wasn't working. As much as they tried, these are smart people. These are NASA people, right? They know what they're doing. It wasn't working. And as I recall the story, the head of the program shut down everything and said, we're going to stop, we're going to meet, we're going to talk, and we're going to figure out what the heck is going on. And they did. And what they found was that they didn't want to feel bad, so they didn't want to make a mistake, so they were trying to build the last one first, and they didn't know what they were doing because nobody's ever done it before. There has to be a learning that goes on, and you learn when things don't go right. They were trying to avoid mistakes and trying to do it perfectly the first time. It is never going to happen. It can't happen. They were avoiding mistakes. So what they did was they said, These aren't mistakes. They're not failures. They're education. We're learning as we go. And now, somebody said, that doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results is a sign of insanity. And I call BS. Yeah, it's insanity if you don't change or learn and try something a little bit different, But that's what these people did. They learned from their mistake. They built the best they could at this moment in time, put it out for testing, found out what didn't work, brought it in, fixed those things, put it out for testing, found out what didn't work, brought it back in. And just by changing their thinking, that's attitude, people. That's glass half full stuff, going to the changing your thinking. It's not failure. It's education. We're going to go through this process and learn as fast as we can. Fail fast is what they called it. And these things are still up on Mars. Most of them are still working. The head of the program said if we'd have done it the old way, we'd ended up with a thing the size of a school bus, massively over budget, and it wouldn't work. By embracing what we used to call failure and understanding its education, they built these wonderful things that are still working. That, friends, is attitude, and it's about understanding that there is no failure as long as you're learning from it. And failure is a thing that you decide. That's a critical point. It's something you decide, not anybody else. There's a 3-strike rule in baseball, and then you're out. Who said that applies to your life? Not me. No, I never heard that. We just assume it does. And the thing is, we don't want to fail, so we don't swing. The reality is you're up at the plate of life, and you can stand there and wait for the pitch you want and swing if you want. And if you want to take 50 strikes, you can do that. Nobody's ever going to call you out. You aren't finished when you swing and miss. You're finished when you quit and walk away. Think about that. We don't want to feel bad, so we don't want to fail, so we don't even try. But if you can live with the possibility that you might feel a little bad, I worked hard at this, and it's, I think of my speaking business. I love speaking. I love doing it, and the business just died. It's like, okay, I guess that's not happening anymore. And I put a bunch of money into marketing and advertising in the right places and a new website run by professionals and all that, and it turned to nothing. And the reality is that business is just gone. And as much as I don't like that, that's reality, and, but it got me to do this. And, this is far more important than talking to business people who are forced to go to their meetings. I mean, you guys chose to be here. Those of you that aren't incarcerated have been watching this for about 45 minutes. You're still there. So, this is far more important than what I did, and I'm not getting paid for it. So that's just fine with me. No 3-strike rule. You just keep swinging until you hit it. All right, I'm going to take a break. You get to take a break. Go get a cup of coffee. Go to the bathroom, and you can come back in a few minutes or whatever. But there's some good stuff coming up in part 2.